Hi, I'm Angie Goepfert, and I'm going to be speaking to you about the need for mandatory rehabilitation for repeat drug offenders in the United States. Drug abuse and repeat drug offenders are a serious problem for the United States today. Without adequate rehabilitation for the drug addicts that commit these repeated drug-related crimes, the endless cycle of addicts being released into society only to repeat the same destructive behavior and inevitably face another prison sentence will never end. The consequences of this problem are great and affect everyone in this country, not just the drug addict themselves. Some of these problems, just to name a few, include millions of wasted tax dollars for U.S. citizens, overcrowded prisons and jails, and senseless pain and suffering for the addicts and their families. I know the suffering and consequences that drug addicts face every day firsthand. I myself have battled with addiction to drugs for almost 10 years. I began intensive outpatient treatment for my addiction, which involved classes 5 days a week, and AA or NA class meetings every week as well. Throughout this year of my life, I learned a great deal about addiction and received the tools that I needed to learn how to live my life without the use of drugs. Today I would like to help you understand the importance of rehabilitation for repeat drug offenders and why mandatory rehab for addicts would decrease drug-related crimes as well as save taxpayers millions of dollars each year. I'm also going to give you a better understanding of addiction and help you get a sense of what most addicts go through during their drug addiction by sharing my own personal struggle with addiction. I feel that the best way to begin is to share the small portion of my personal struggle with you. Hopelessness, sadness, guilt, remorse, these are just a few of the painful feelings that most drug addicts experience. I felt all these horrible feelings almost 4 years ago. The insanity of an addiction to a drug, that was my life back then, chaotic and insane. I was 26 years old, a single mother with 2 beautiful little girls. Kari was 6 and Jada was a year old. I had been battling with my addiction for quite some time by then, almost 10 years to be exact. This was my life, this was what I knew, and I didn't have a clue of how insane it really was. Then one day I got a huge dose of reality when I had to make a decision: my kids or the drugs. My family and I had tried everything to help me and couldn't watch me kill myself any longer. So they tried the one thing that they knew would get my attention, making me face the fact that if I didn't stop using, that I would lose my children and everything else in my life. DCFS came into our lives and it was a blessing. It saved our lives. I began intensive outpatient treatment 5 days a week and attended NA and AA meetings as well. Without the treatment plan and the inpatient rehabilitation, I would still be using today. Now that I've given you my personal testament of addiction, I'm going to share with you the research that I found to support my theories. The United States has the largest incarceration rate in the world. According to an article called Drug Offenders in U.S. Prisons by Taylor Stamulus, drug offenders make up the largest portion of prisoners that are locked up in our federal and local prisons. Taylor Stamulus goes on to say that in 2006, according to the Drug and Crime Fact Sheet, a total of 176,300 prisoners were incarcerated. As of September 30th, 2006, 93,751 were drug offenders. What we need to realize and remember is that these people are drug addicts, and they, like every other addict like them, need to be rehabilitated in order to change their behaviors and lifestyles. Along with these high prison population comes a high cost. In 2005 alone, taxpayers were paying a huge unnecessary amount of money for prison costs. According to the Drug Offenders in U.S. Prisons by Taylor Stamulus, prison costs were $32 billion a year for taxpayers in 2005. For every year that an inmate stays in prison, it costs taxpayers $22,000 per year to keep them incarcerated. That's for just one person. The average cost for an inmate serving a life sentence was $1.5 million in 2005. Now that I've given you the cost of keeping an inmate incarcerated, I'm sure you're wondering about what it would cost for rehabilitation for repeat drug offenders as well. The state of California started researching rehabilitation for repeat drug offenders to see if the rehab would cut back on prison costs due to repeat drug crimes by drug addicts. According to Taylor Stamulus's column, California found that they would save an amazing $561 million to $684 million a year if prisoners were given treatment instead of prison time. The money that California would save would be put to better and much needed use by bettering educational programs, jobs, welfare, and anything else that needed help in their state. Think about this, if you would. If we could rehabilitate drug addicts, they would stop using drugs, and the number of drug-related crimes and repeat drug offenders would decrease dramatically. Rehabilitation programs would help to decrease the rate of repeated drug crimes. This is strongly supported by a number of studies that were performed by professionals related to this concept. According to About.com, a recent study done by Catherine E. McAllister, PhD of the University of Miami's Health Services Research Center, shows that treatment for drug abuse within the prison setting could not only drop reincarceration rates, but be cost-effective as well. Douglas Lipton from the National Development and Research Institute states, and I quote, "Without intervention, this group will return to crime and drug use 9 times out of 10 after release and will be back in custody within 3 years. With an appropriate intervention applied for sufficient duration, more than 3 out of 4 will succeed," unquote. From the undeniable proof from studies that were done by professionals in this field that rehabilitation is necessary for repeat drug offenders in order to reduce repeat offenses, there were changes that came to try to reduce drug crimes. Different plans and propositions were put into place. The Substance Abuse and Crime Prevention Act of 2000. According to SEC.gov, Act is also called Proposition 36. This provides drug abuse offenders with the option of treatment instead of prison time. This is a graph from the article Drug Offenders in U.S. Prisons by Taylor Stamulus. This shows the increasing rate of prisoners from 1920 to 2007. And when Nixon declared the war on drugs, the incarceration rate rose dramatically for repeat drug offenders. As we can clearly see, mandatory rehabilitation for repeat drug offenders is a solution that will decrease repeated drug offenses drastically and save millions of lives as well. From my personal experiences with addiction, I am certain that a simple prison sentence isn't the answer for drug offenders. Treatment plans and the ability to learn a new way to live without drugs is what they desperately need. Without the classes and the meetings that I attended, I would never have been able to survive and been able to see that I could live without the drugs. I'm not saying that this solution will totally end America's drug problems or that all addicts can be saved. Addicts can only be saved if that is what they want for themselves. But take it from me, a majority of them don't want to suffer anymore, and they need our help to show them there's life after addiction. Thank you.